Why were British able to replace the Mughals as the ruling force of India? 7 marks. Answer. British were militarily superior to the Indian Moor rulers. British were the first and foremost beneficiary of the Industrial Revolution, and 70, 80 onwards, so they began to acquire sophisticated weapons while developing other industries. They used these weapons against the Mughals, who continued to rely on outdated weapons and old warfare. They had a strong sense of success that kept their determination unshaken. This sense of superiority was the main motivating force behind their victorious march in India. British also used non-military warfare to establish themselves in India. Their divide and rule policy enabled them to annex various states by keeping their ruling hostile against each other. Indians had been a divided nation, and many state rulers sought British help against their rivals without considering their collective interests. Many of them were bribed or threatened by the East India Company. They also bribed key ministers of various local rulers to win their support. Mir Jafar in Bengal and Mir Sadiq in Mysore played key role by switching their loyalties to the British. Therefore, the British achieved vital victories in the Battle of Plassey, 1757, against Nawab Sirajuddaula of Bengal, and the last Anglo-Mysore War against Tipu in 1799. By the start of 18th century, the Mughals got involved in a luxurious style of life, neglecting state affairs. Rulers of several peripheral states became autonomous, and they proved an easy target to the British. Weak successors of Aurangzeb gradually lost their control over a huge empire as several local rulers became autonomous. These successors became luxury loving and distanced themselves from the state affairs that were given in the hands of greedy and selfish courtiers and ministers. These ministers were mainly concerned about misusing the state funds and filling their own pockets. They remained ignorant of the East India Company acquiring military power. Explain how Titumir protected the interests of Muslim farmers in a subcontinent in the early 19th century. Answer. Titumir offered strong resistance to both the British East India Company and the Hindu zamindars in West Bengal. Born as Syed Mir Nisar Ali in 1782 in Chandpur, he was educated in a local madrasa. He was worried about the poor condition of the Muslim farmers, and a lack of awareness among them. While in Makkah, he was inspired by Sayyid Ahmad Shahid Brelvi, who was fighting against the Sikh rule in Punjab. Therefore, he too decided to conduct jihad or holy war against the tyrant non-Muslim elements in West Bengal. In June 1830, a Hindu Zamindar Krishnadeva imposed an annual tax on all bearded Muslim men. And this was an offensive and humiliating act, and so resented by the Bengali Muslims. Titu advised the Bengali Muslim farmers not to pay this discriminatory tax. In order to achieve his objectives, he raised a rebellion army, mainly against the Hindu Zamindars. He set up a fort of bamboos for his army near Calcutta in 1873. After a small fight between the Muslim farmers and the armed men of Krishna Krishnadeva, the local police took no action. Consequently, some more Hindu Zimidars imposed the same tax. Titumir shifted his base from Chandpur to Narkalberia, Narkalberia and organized a larger army. He led 300 armed Muslims to destroy the property of many Zimidars. In response, the affected Zimidars sought help from the British. However, Titumi's army was victorious in the subsequent small-scale fights. By 1831, he had gained enough strength to proclaim himself as the Badshah. This was alarming for the British authorities. On 18 November 1831, a British army led by Major Sutherland and Lieutenant Shakespeare attacked the bamboo fort and defeated and killed Titmir with most of his followers. Why did Shah Waliullah wish to revive Islam in the subcontinent? 7 marks. Answer. Shah Waliullah was a great reformer. He was born in 1703, only 4 years before the death of Aurangzeb. Therefore, he was a witness to and worried over the process of the decline of the Mughal Empire and the deteriorating condition of the Indian Muslims. He believed that the main reason of the miserable condition of the Muslims was their ignorance of Quran and Sunnah. Persian and the court language was understood by the educated Muslim elite, and so he translated the Quran into Persian language. Thus, a greater number of Muslims could understand and follow the Quranic teachings. In order to create awareness among Muslims regarding the problems faced by them and the possible solutions to the problems, he wrote several books. The most famous book was Hujjatul al-Baligha, and that contains a guidance for individual and communal matters of Muslims, including ethics. In Izalatul Khafa, usually misspelled as Izalatul Ikhfa, he tried to remove the differences between the two major sects of Islam, Sunni and Shia Muslims. In this, he wrote the biographies of the four rightly guided caliphs in a way acceptable to both the major sects. This book contributed to ironing out differences between the Sunnis and Shias. He also advised Muslims to work honestly and with dedication if they really wanted to come out of a state of helplessness and ignorance that they had inherited from the corrupt, weak, and luxury loving rulers. As a result of this, there were several threats to the Mughal rule in India, both from within and outside. He emphasized the importance of jihad against a common enemy. Therefore, he invited Ahmad Shah Abdali of Afghanistan to save it. Accordingly, Abdali broke the backbone of the South Indian militant Hindu community, the Marathas. He defeated them in the third and last battle of Panipat In 1761, though he himself did not stay back in India. Why did Sayyid Shahid Brelvi start his jihad movement? 7 marks. Answer. Sir Syed Ahmad Shahid Brelvi wanted to revive Islam in India by armed struggle jihad. He could see the British establishing their rule over various parts of India, as a result of which Muslims were fast losing their dominant position and importance in India. The East India Company had annexed the important Muslim majority province of Bengal and the neighboring northeastern Indian territories, and was advancing towards the northeast Muslim majority province. He thought that Muslims could achieve freedom by waging jihad, armed struggle, against the non-Muslims. For this, he was influenced by the sons of Shah Waliullah. Being a man of action, he could act as a strong leader to work against the non-Muslim powers in India and to struggle to restore the Muslim rule over various Indian territories. He believed that there was a need to eliminate the evils that were corrupting the beliefs and the practices of the Indian Muslims as a result of a growing non-Muslim influence during the 19th century. Therefore, he raised an army of several thousand mujahideen and shifted to the NWF Northwest Frontier area. He was supported by the local tribal chiefs for some years. The rulers of Tonk, Gwalior, and Rampur also supported him. Sayyid Ahmad Shahid Brelvi could see the British policy of restricting the powers of the Mughal emperors and strengthening the non-Muslims in various parts of India. For example, the Punjab was a Muslim majority province but was ruled by the non-Muslim minority of Sikhs. The ruler Raja Ranjit Singh was very hostile towards Muslims. They could not deliver azan and therefore found it difficult to offer prayers in congregation. The Badshahi Mosque of Lahore was denied to Muslims and used as a stable by the Sikh forces. Muslims had to undergo many other similar humiliations. He therefore founded the Jihad movement against the Sikh ruler of Punjab and began to defeat the Sikh forces 1826 onwards with the help of Pathan tribal chiefs. Why did Haji Shariatullah start his Friesi movement? 7 marks. Answer. Haji Shariatullah wanted Muslims to observe religious obligations thrice. He believed that due to the growing non-Muslim influence in various parts of India, Muslims had started abandoning the genuine teachings of Islam. Therefore, he wanted them to return unto the Islamic teachings. For this, he instructed the poor Bengali Muslims to fulfill their religious duties or fries, as a result of which they could hope an improvement in their miserable condition. Bengali Muslims suffered a lot under the dual oppression of the British and the rich and powerful Hindu l- landowners, zimidars, who were a beneficiary of the British rulers. Haji Shariatullah believed that such a scenario demanded India to be declared Darul Harb, literally the battlefield, meaning thereby a land under non-Muslim rule until it is liberated and becomes Darul Islam. In such a land, and the Friday and Eid congregational prayers could not be offered until its liberation. In a way, Haji Shariatullah supported the idea of jihad against the non-Muslim Hindus and the British who were undermining the true principles of Islam through their repressive and coercive principles. Bengali Muslims were restricted to ordinary jobs like workers on a farm, and they were given few opportunities in education and employment. Amidst these circumstances, Haji Shriatullah thought it important to launch his prize movement. Where were their attempts for the revival of Islam in India during 18th and 19th century? 7 marks. Answer. Three reformers were worried about the Indian Muslims. Shah Waliullah believed that the main reason for the decline of Muslims was their negligence of the teachings of Quran and Sunnah. He translated the Quran into Persian, the court language at that time. Thus, more Muslims could understand and follow the Quranic teachings. He also believed Muslims needed to be united and avoid a sectarian divine in order to ensure their survival. He worked for the Sunni Shia unity and for this wrote biographies of the four caliphs acceptable to both Sunni and Shia Muslim, Izalatul Fifar. Syed Ahmad Shahid believed that jihad was needed to liberate Muslims of Punjab from the tyrant Sikh ruler Ranjit Singh, who treated Muslims with humiliation. In Punjab, Azan was banned, and the Badshahi Mosque Lahore was used as a staple by the Sikh army as a token of disregard of the religious beliefs and practices of Muslims. Therefore, Sayyid Ahmad Shahid raised an army of around 80,000 mujahideen and founded the Jihad movement against the oppressive Sikh rule in Punjab. Haji Shariatullah believed that the Muslims of Bengal were suffering because of their neglect of their prized religious obligations. Bengali Muslims were generally poor and backward due to the dominance of the British in the region since 1757. Haji Shariatullah wanted to improve their socio-economic conditions and create political awareness among them. In order to do so, he believed that they needed to fulfill their prize, the daily prayers, the fast of Ramadan, etc. Only then they could improve their miserable condition while living under the British rule and the rich Hindu zemindars, rich landlords. So he started his Friday movement in East Bengal to create awareness among the poor Bengali Muslims and unite them for the common cause of improving their religious and socio-economic conditions. Why did the Indians not achieve independence in 1857? 7 marks. Answer. Indians were disunited in the war. The divide between Hindus and Muslims was visible as Hindus were not sincere in restoring the Mughal rule. In different places, different groups fought for different reasons. thus weakening their own strength. The Punjab and Sindh had been recently annexed by the East India Company with the help of troops from Bengal and central India. So, when the same troops rebelled against the British, the two provinces were uninterested in helping the rebellion, and the Punjab actually sent troops and supplies to help the British. The Maharaja of Kashmir also sent troops for the same purpose. This disunity did not let a united front to emerge against the British. Instead, it greatly helped the British to deal with the rebellion successfully. There was no general plan before the start of the war that started abruptly by the defiance of a single soldier, Mangal Pandey. The rebels perhaps forgot that they were fighting against a very strong nation and that required a well thought war plan. During the course of the war, this lack of planning and coordination became more prominent as the various rebel groups did not know how to proceed in case of any success. This helped the British to regain their control within a year. Rebels began to plunder their fellow countrymen after taking control of many cities. Thus, the affected people preferred to leak information to the British about the rebels. The British had a professionally trained army with several experienced commanders who had been trained to deal with such emergencies. They had been familiar with modern methods of fighting a huge army with a lesser number of troops. Moreover, the British had a strong sense of success as they were one of the most powerful nations of the world at that time. So their confidence and disciplined army took little time in overcoming the revolt. Why did Sir Syed present his two-nation theory? 7 marks. Answer. Sir Syed opposed a number of Hindu demands. In 1867, Hindus demanded that Hindi should be declared the official language of India in place of Urdu that enjoyed the same status since 1825. Urdu, written in Persian Arabic script, was one of the marks of cultural identity of Muslims. Hindi, with its Devanagari script, reflected the future plans of Hindu Raj over India. Sir Syed strongly opposed this demand and predicted that in future there might be a separation between Hindus and Muslims. In 1880s, the Hindu-dominated International Congress made two more demands that were apparently democratic but in reality against the interests of Muslims. It demanded that elections of the councils in India should be held on the basis of modern Western democracy. Sir Syed countered this demand by saying that Hindus, being a majority and politically more vibrant, might win election on all seats. He suggested the idea of separate electorates for Muslims. Finally, he opposed another demand of the Congress that asked for the competitive examinations for the civil services in India. He knew that Hindus were far more educated than Muslims and therefore there was little chance for Muslims to get any seat in the civil services. He argued that only when equal educational opportunities were provided to both the communities could such an idea work. Challenging his political views in the late 1880s, he advised Muslims to participate in politics. He founded the Patriotic Alliance in 1888 with the assistance of Mr. Theodore Beck. It was renamed Mohammedan Defense Association in 1893. Question: why did Sir Syed try to improve relations between the Muslims and the British? 7 marks. Answer: Muslims became the target of the British anger and wrath after the 1857 war. Hindus had very cleverly put the blame on Muslims, and it was easier for the British to punish a minority. British had replaced Muslims as the new rulers of India, but Muslims still carried a sense of impartial pride due to their glorious past. It was important for them to accept the drastically changed political scenario of India. He also tried to change the British mind in favor of Muslims. For this, he wrote 2 pamphlets: Essays on the Causes of Indian Revolt and Loyal Mohammedans of India. So Sayyid knew that Muslims could hope for an improved socio-economic status only by making friends with the British, who had complete political control of India. If Muslims distanced themselves from the British, they would continue to remain a backward and poor community. By improving relations with the British, Muslims had a better opportunity to get better jobs. Therefore, he tried to convince the Muslims about improving relations with the British. He wrote an incomplete translation of the Bible, Tabain al-Kalam, in which he highlighted the similarities between Islam and Christianity. He corrected errors in a book by Sir William Muir, Life of Muhammad, peace be upon him, so that the British could realize the sensitivity of the religious sentiments of the Muslims. Moreover, Hindus had already started improving their relations with the British because for them it was only a matter of changed rulers. They began to acquire modern British education, which most of the Muslims considered un-Islamic. So Syed knew that this would cause a growing social and economic disparity between Hindus and Muslims, and this would bring more troubles for the Muslims. He wanted the Muslims to change their rigid views about the British and their modern education system. Question: why did the Syed advise Muslims to acquire modern British education? 7 marks. Answer: British had replaced the old Indian education system by the modern education in English. Sir Syed knew that all modern scientific research work was in English, and therefore English was going to dominate the world. Unless Muslims acquired a modern British education, they could not get better jobs and therefore could not hope for improving their socio-economic condition. After the war, they had been denied any respectable post in India, and this further added unto their miseries. He therefore set up a school in Moradabad in 1859 and another school in Ghazipur in 1864. Muslims also lagged behind Hindus in almost all walks of life, as the latter had already started equipping themselves with the modern education. Hindus therefore were fast becoming prosperous, rich, and advanced. They were dominating the post-war India, acting in a clever and wise way by accepting the culture and customs of the new rulers. Muslims therefore needed to compete with Hindus in order to ensure their survival and dignity in India. Educated Muslims had a better chance of being in the good books of the British, who hardly trusted them. He set up a Ghazi, he set up the Ghazipur Scientific Society in 1863, where modern English writings were translated in Persian and Urdu. Sir Syed also told Muslims that it was vital to get modern education if they wanted to develop political awareness and insight. Through the beginning, and Sir Syed discouraged Muslims from participating in politics. With the emergence of the Hindu dominated International Congress and its pro Hindu policies. He had to change his views. Therefore, he wanted Muslims to beware of the clever policies of the International Congress and realize that um, they too they too had to be politically alert and vibrant in the British India.